The clink of expensive glasses and the murmur of pretentious conversation surrounded me like a foreign language I wasn't fluent in. Candlelight flickered across white tablecloths, creating shadows that danced along with my anxiety. I checked my watch again. 45 minutes late. I should have left 30 minutes ago, but hope is a stubborn companion. I fidgeted with the hem of my dress. The nicest one I owned, purchased from a clearance rack last summer. The waiter approached for the 4th time, his polite smile now strained with pity. "Another glass of water, miss?" he asked, eyeing the untouched bread basket. "Yes, please," I whispered, my cheeks burning with humiliation. I'd been nursing the same complimentary bread for nearly an hour, watching as couples around me ordered appetizers, entrees, and desserts. I reached for my purse and peeked inside, knowing exactly what I'd find: 5 crumpled dollar bills. All I had to last until payday. I had agreed to meet at this upscale restaurant, only because Eric had suggested it, promising to treat me. "I'm looking forward to impressing you," he'd written in his last message. I should have known better. My roommate's enthusiasm about setting me up with her boyfriend's friend had blinded me to reality. The universe had a way of reminding me of my place. The entrance door opened, and I glanced up with pathetic hopefulness. But it wasn't Eric. Instead, a hush fell over the restaurant as a man entered, flanked by 2 others in dark suits. Even from across the room, I could feel a shift in the atmosphere. Like the air pressure dropping before a storm, the maitre d' hurried over, nodding deferentially, gesturing toward a private alcove. As they passed near my table, I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. Something earthy and masculine that made me think of leather-bound books and aged whiskey. I kept my eyes down, but I could feel a gaze lingering on me. The man who had commanded everyone's attention was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. His dark hair was neatly styled, and though I only caught a glimpse of his face, I noticed how his jaw clenched slightly when his eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. I looked away immediately, but not before I saw something flash across his expression, curiosity perhaps, or something darker that made my pulse quicken. My phone buzzed. A text from Eric. "Sorry, not going to make it." Something came up. No apology, no offer to reschedule. Just a dismissal as casual as tossing away a used napkin. My throat tightened as I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The waiter returned, placing another glass of water before me. "Are you ready to order?" he asked, his tone gentle but expectant. Other tables needed this space. Paying customers. My voice caught. "I think I'm going to leave. My date isn't coming." The admission felt like swallowing glass. Something changed in the waiter's expression. Sympathy mixed with embarrassment on my behalf. "Of course, miss. No problem at all." I reached for my purse, preparing to skulk out of this place that was never meant for someone like me, when a voice interrupted. "Excuse me." The waiter turned, and I looked up to see one of the suited men from the private alcove. Up close, he was intimidating, broad-shouldered with a scar running through his right eyebrow. "Mr. Russo would like to extend an invitation to join him," he said, his voice low and measured. I blinked, certain I had misheard. "I'm sorry?" The man gestured toward the alcove where the dark-haired man sat, now watching our exchange openly. "Mr. Russo noticed you've been waiting alone. He'd like to offer you dinner." My cheeks flamed anew. "That's very kind, but I couldn't possibly—" "He insists," the man cut in, not unkindly but with a finality that suggested this wasn't a request one refused. I hesitated, clutching my purse with its pathetic $5. Pride warred with hunger and curiosity. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, a stale granola bar at the daycare center where I worked. The rational part of my brain screamed warnings about strange men and dangerous situations, but another part whispered that I had nothing to lose. "Just dinner," I clarified, finding my voice. The man nodded once, then stepped aside to let me pass. Walking across that restaurant felt like crossing an invisible boundary. Conversations hushed as I passed, and I felt eyes following me, judging the obvious mismatch of my clearance rack dress against the caliber of company I was about to keep. As I approached the alcove, I finally got a clear view of Mr. Russo. He was older than I had first thought, late 30s perhaps, with features that spoke of Mediterranean heritage. His eyes were dark and penetrating, set beneath strong brows, He wasn't conventionally handsome, but there was something magnetic about his presence, an aura of absolute control that both unnerved and fascinated me. He stood as I approached, a gesture of old-world courtesy that seemed at odds with the dangerous energy he emanated. "Thank you for accepting my invitation," he said, his voice a low, smooth tenor with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "I'm Dominic Russo." "Lily Spencer," I replied, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. "This is very generous of you, Mr. Russo, but I don't want to impose. Please, call me Dominic." He gestured to the chair across from him, which another suited man pulled out for me. "And you're not imposing. I find dining alone inefficient." I slid into the seat, noting how the leather-bound menu before me had no prices listed. "Is that why you invited me? Efficiency?" A smile played at the corners of his mouth, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Let's say I recognized someone who deserved better than they were getting tonight. The waiter, a different one from before, appeared at our table, pouring water and reciting specials with reverent deference. Dominic ordered wine without consulting me, then looked expectantly in my direction. "Order whatever appeals to you," he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. I ordered the first pasta dish I saw, too overwhelmed to consider options. As the waiter departed, an uncomfortable silence descended. I found myself studying the heavy silver rings on Dominic's fingers, the perfect Windsor knot of his tie, the way his suit jacket stretched across broad shoulders that suggested regular physical activity despite his evident wealth and status. "Your date was a fool," Dominic said suddenly, causing my eyes to snap up to his. "To keep a woman waiting is disrespectful. To abandon her is unforgivable." Heat crawled up my neck. "How did you—" "I notice things, Lily Spencer. It's a necessary skill in my line of work." "And what work is that?" I ventured. His smile widened fractionally. "Import and export, primarily. Business development. Asset acquisition." He took a sip of water, his eyes never leaving mine. "And you? What do you do?" "I work at a daycare center," I replied, feeling the vast gulf between our worlds widen with every word. "I'm also taking night classes in early childhood education." "Children," he said, nodding slowly. "They're honest, unfiltered. There's value in that." The wine arrived, a deep red that caught the candlelight like liquid rubies. The waiter poured a taste for Dominic, who approved it with a slight nod before my glass was filled. I took a sip and nearly gasped. I knew nothing about wine, but I knew this was exceptional, rich and complex in ways that made the occasional cheap bottles I shared with my roommate taste like vinegar in comparison. "Do you believe in fate, Lily?" Dominic asked, swirling his wine gently. The question caught me off guard. I'm not sure. Do you?" "I believe there are no accidents. Every meeting has purpose." His gaze was intense enough to make me look away. "Your date's failure became my opportunity." "Opportunity for what?" The words escaped before I could stop them. His eyes darkened. "To correct an injustice, to ensure the evening wasn't wasted." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me something true about yourself, Lily Spencer. Something you wouldn't tell most people on a first meeting." I should have been frightened by his intensity, by the commanding presence that seemed to shrink the room. Instead, I found myself answering with unexpected honesty. "I'm terrified of ending up invisible," I confessed, "of living a life so small that when I'm gone, no one will notice I was ever here." Something shifted in his expression, a flash of recognition, perhaps. For a moment, the mask of cool control slipped, revealing something raw beneath. "Invisibility is a choice for some, a sentence for others," he replied softly. "But I see you, Lily Spencer." Our food arrived, momentarily breaking the strange tension that had formed between us. I took the opportunity to collect myself, wondering what madness had possessed me to share something so personal with a stranger, especially one who radiated such dangerous energy. As we ate, Dominic asked questions about my life, listening with unsettling intensity to my answers about growing up in foster care, my struggle to pay for education, my small apartment shared with a rotating cast of roommates. He offered little about himself in return, deflecting personal questions with practiced ease. Dessert appeared without being ordered, a delicate chocolate confection that melted on my tongue. As I savored it, I noticed Dominic checking his watch. "I have matters to attend to," he said, signaling for the check. "My driver will take you home." "That's not necessary," I protested. "I can take the bus." His expression hardened. "It's nearly midnight, Lily. I insist." The bill arrived, and he signed it without glancing at the total. As we stood to leave, I felt lightheaded. From the wine, from the surreal nature of the evening, from the intensity of his presence. Outside, a black SUV with tinted windows waited at the curb. The scarred man from earlier opened the door, and Dominic gestured for me to enter. "This is Marco. He'll ensure you arrive home safely." "Thank you for dinner," I said, suddenly uncertain. It was unexpected. Dominic reached into his jacket and produced a business card, pressing it into my palm. His fingers brushed mine, warm and slightly calloused. Not the soft hands I would have expected from a businessman. "My private number," he said. "If you ever need anything at all, you call, day or night." "Why would you do that? You don't know me." He stepped closer, and I caught that scent again, leather and spice, and something uniquely him. As I said, "I see you, Lily Spencer, perhaps better than you see yourself." Before I could respond, he brushed his lips against my cheek, a gesture both formal and startlingly intimate. "Until next time," he murmured against my skin, then stepped back. I slid into the SUV, my heart racing as the door closed behind me. Marco got into the driver's seat, asking for my address in a clipped tone. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back to see Dominic watching, his expression unreadable in the shadows. Only when I arrived home, thanking Marco awkwardly as he insisted on walking me to my door, did I realize my fatal mistake. In the whirlwind of the evening, I had forgotten to tell Dominic I had a 6-year-old son waiting at my neighbor's apartment. A son whose father had abandoned us both, whose existence I guarded fiercely from the judgment of others. A detail that would surely have changed everything about our encounter. I collected Jamie from Mrs. Patel's apartment, thanking her profusely for keeping him past her usual babysitting hours. My son's sleepy weight against my shoulder was both comfort and burden as I carried him back to our tiny one-bedroom apartment. "Did you have fun with your prince?" Mrs. Patel asked, her eyes twinkling with well-meaning curiosity. "He wasn't exactly Prince Charming," I whispered, conscious of Jamie's slow, rhythmic breathing against my neck. Her smile faltered. "Men these days, no consideration. You deserve better, Beta." If she only knew how the night had actually unfolded. I couldn't bring myself to mention Dominic Russo. The encounter felt too strange, too private to share, like a dream that would dissipate in the telling. Inside our apartment, I tucked Jamie into his bed in the alcove we'd partitioned off from the living room with a colorful curtain, our makeshift second bedroom. I brushed his dark curls from his forehead, marveling as always at how much he looked like his father, despite Michael having been out of the picture since before Jamie was born. "Good night, my little knight," I whispered, our nightly ritual. "Good night, Mommy Queen," he murmured back, already drifting into sleep. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection as I removed my makeup. The woman looking back seemed different somehow, her eyes holding a new wariness, or perhaps awareness. I reached into my purse and pulled out Dominic's business card. Heavy cream cardstock, embossed with only his name and a phone number. No company, no title, no address. Just like the man himself, it revealed nothing while commanding attention. I tucked the card into my nightstand drawer, behind a stack of unpaid bills, as if hiding evidence of a crime. Sleep eluded me that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dominic's intense gaze, felt the ghost of his lips against my cheek. What kind of man commands that kind of respect, or fear, from everyone around him? What kind of import-export business requires armed guards? And why would such a man take interest in someone like me? The morning brought the usual chaos of getting Jamie ready for school and myself prepared for work. Reality reasserted itself with each mundane task, making breakfast, packing lunches, searching for Jamie's missing shoe under the couch. By the time I dropped him off at school, last night felt like something I'd imagined. The little Sprouts daycare center where I worked was housed in a converted Victorian home, its cheerful yellow exterior belying the financial struggles of its owners. I'd been there for 3 years, working with the 3 to 4-year-olds, children whose personalities were emerging in fascinating and sometimes challenging ways. "Earth to Lily," said Vanessa, my co-teacher, waving her hand in front of my face. "You've been staring at that finger painting for 5 minutes. Hot date last night?" I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "The opposite. Got stood up, actually. That jerk Eric? I never liked him, even through Jen's descriptions." She shook her head, her braids swinging. "His loss. Though you look more thoughtful than heartbroken." I hesitated, then offered a sanitized version. "Someone else bought me dinner after Eric bailed. A businessman. It was strange but nice." "Strange good or strange call the police?" Vanessa asked, half joking. "Just intense, like talking to someone from another world." I busied myself arranging art supplies for our morning activity. "Ooh, mysterious." She wiggled her eyebrows. "Rich?" "Definitely," I admitted. "But that's not Miss Lily." "Miss Lily." A chorus of voices interrupted as our classroom door burst open, signaling the arrival of our charges for the day. The conversation was mercifully cut short as we were enveloped in the beautiful chaos of 12 preschoolers. The day passed in a blur of activities, snack times, and minor emergencies involving spilled juice and disputed toy ownership. By late afternoon, I was helping Zoe, one of our quieter children, put on her coat when the center's director appeared at the classroom door. "Lily, there's someone here for you," she said, her expression unreadable. My heart skipped. "For me? I'm not expecting anyone." "A delivery," she clarified. "I've put it in the break room." I finished buttoning Zoe's coat, then made my way to the staff break room, curious and slightly apprehensive. What awaited me stole my breath. A massive arrangement of white roses and lilies dominated the small table, so extravagant it seemed to overwhelm the shabby room with its peeling wallpaper and ancient coffee machine. "Holy crap," Vanessa whispered from behind me. "That's not a flower arrangement. It's a floral declaration of war." With trembling fingers, I reached for the small envelope nestled among the blooms. The card inside bore a simple message in elegant script: "Fate rewards honesty. Dinner. This Saturday." "I'll send Marco at 8. No signature, but none was needed." "Who's Marco?" Vanessa asked, reading over my shoulder. "And what honesty is he talking about?" "It's complicated," I managed, my mind racing. I told him about my aspirations, my fears. "Well, whoever he is, he's got good taste." She touched one of the lilies gently. "These must have cost a fortune." They did, I was certain. And therein lay the problem. I'd spent one surreal evening in Dominic's company, and now he was sending extravagant gifts to my workplace, making assumptions about my availability, treating my time as if it were his to command. I should have been offended by his presumption. I should have called the number on his card and politely declined. Instead, I found myself calculating whether Mrs. Patel would be available to watch Jamie on Saturday night, and what I might wear that wouldn't look as hopelessly out of place as I had felt at that restaurant. The rest of the week passed with excruciating slowness. I told myself repeatedly that I would cancel, that entertaining any connection with a man like Dominic Russo was foolish at best, dangerous at worst. Yet I didn't reach for his card, didn't make that call. On Friday afternoon, as I was gathering Jamie's things from his classroom, his teacher pulled me aside. "Lily, I wanted to let you know. Jamie had a bit of a rough day," she said, her voice lowered so the remaining children couldn't hear. "There was an incident at recess. Some of the older boys were teasing him about not having a dad." My heart sank. "Again?" She nodded sympathetically. "He handled it well, but I thought you should know." We had a good talk about how families come in all shapes and sizes. I thanked her, then found Jamie sitting alone on the bench outside his classroom, his small face set in a stoic expression that broke my heart. At 6, he was already learning to hide his pain. "Hey, kiddo," I said, sitting beside him. "Ready to go home?" He nodded, reaching for my hand as we walked to the bus stop. We were halfway home when he finally spoke. "Mom, why don't I have a dad like the other kids?" The question, though expected, still felt like a punch to the stomach. I'd answered it before, tailoring my response as he grew older, but it never got easier. You do have a dad, Jamie. He just isn't part of our lives. But why? Didn't he want me? I swallowed hard. It's complicated, sweetie. Your dad wasn't ready to be a father. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means he made a choice, and it was his loss. I squeezed his hand. But you have me, and I love you enough for 2 parents. Tyler said only losers don't have dads, Jamie whispered, staring at his sneakers. Anger flashed through me, at Tyler, at Michael, at a world that made my son feel lesser. Tyler is wrong, I said firmly. And do you know what? You're the bravest, smartest, most amazing kid I know. That makes you the opposite of a loser. Jamie leaned against me, not entirely consoled, but drawing comfort from my presence. I wished, not for the first time, that I could give him more, a stable home without financial worries, a complete family, protection from the casual cruelty of other children. That night, after Jamie was asleep, I retrieved Dominic's card from my nightstand. I ran my fingers over the embossed letters, thinking of his intensity, his command of a room, the way even the restaurant staff had deferred to him with a mixture of respect and fear. A man like that would never understand the complexities of my life, the responsibilities that defined me. Yet something about him, perhaps the way he'd noticed me when I felt invisible, or the unexpected depth in his eyes when I'd confessed my fears, made me reach for my phone. I composed a message, deleted it, rewrote it 3 times before finally pressing send. Thank you for the flowers. They're beautiful. About Saturday. I need to explain something first. His response came almost immediately. I'm listening. I took a deep breath and typed, I have a 6-year-old son. I'm a package deal. I should have mentioned it that night. The minutes ticked by with no response. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, cursing myself for having sent the message at all. Of course, this would change everything. Men like Dominic Russo didn't date single mothers from the wrong side of town. When my phone finally buzzed, I almost dropped it in my haste to read the message. Your honesty is refreshing. Marco will collect both of you at 6 instead of 8. I know a place suitable for children. I read the message twice, uncertain whether to feel relieved or terrified. He wanted to meet Jamie? The thought filled me with conflicting emotions. Part of me was touched that he hadn't immediately withdrawn his invitation, but another part, the protective mother bear, recoiled at the idea of introducing my son to someone I barely knew, someone who radiated danger beneath his polished exterior. I don't think that's a good idea, I replied. Jamie doesn't meet people I date. Not that this was dating exactly, but I didn't know what else to call it. Another quick response. Understandable. Saturday at 8 then, just us. I stared at those 3 words. Just us. Feeling their weight and implication. I was agreeing to see him again, alone, deliberately this time. No accidental meeting, no being caught off guard, a choice. Saturday arrived with a knot of anticipation in my stomach. Mrs. Patel agreed to watch Jamie, her eyes twinkling with renewed interest in my social life. I spent far too long deciding what to wear, finally settling on a simple black dress, my one nice outfit, reserved for job interviews and parent-teacher conferences. At precisely 8 p.m., a knock came at my door. Marco stood in the hallway, impassive as ever in his dark suit. Miss Spencer, he greeted me with a slight nod. Mr. Russo is waiting. The same black SUV idled at the curb. This time, however, Dominic wasn't waiting for me inside. Marco drove in silence through the city, eventually pulling up to a renovated warehouse in an area I'd never visited. Once industrial, now clearly transformed into something exclusive. Marco led me through an unmarked door into what appeared to be a private club. The space was elegant but understated. Exposed brick walls, soft lighting, a small jazz quartet playing in the corner. Only a dozen or so tables occupied the vast space, each positioned to ensure privacy. Dominic stood as I approached, and once again I was struck by his commanding presence. Tonight he wore a charcoal suit similar to the one from our first meeting, but with a deep burgundy tie that caught the light when he moved. "Lily," he said, taking my hand and bringing it to his lips in a gesture that should have seemed affected but somehow wasn't. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," I replied, suddenly self-conscious about my simple dress and lack of expensive jewelry. "This place is not what I expected. It belongs to a friend," Dominic said, helping me into my seat. "I prefer privacy when I dine." "Is privacy a professional necessity or a personal preference?" I asked, emboldened by curiosity. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Both. In my position, the two are often inseparable." He poured wine from a decanter already waiting on the table. "You shared something important with me yesterday. Your son. Tell me about him." The request caught me off guard. Men I'd dated in the past had viewed Jamie as an inconvenience, a complication to be tolerated rather than a person to be known. "Jamie is everything," I said simply. "He's 6, brilliant, sensitive, too observant for his own good sometimes. He loves dinosaurs and space and asks questions I don't always know how to answer, like why his father isn't present," Dominic stated rather than asked. I tensed. "How did you—" "Assumption based on your message. You referred to yourself as a package deal. That suggests sole responsibility." He held up a hand. "I'm not prying, Lily, just observing." "Yes, well, your observation is correct," I admitted. "Jamie's father chose not to be involved." "Ancient history now." Dominic's expression darkened briefly. "Some men don't deserve the children they father, or the women who bear them." There was something in his tone, a personal edge that made me wonder about his own history. Before I could pursue it, servers appeared with our first course, plated with artistic precision. "You didn't ask what I wanted to eat," I noted as they retreated. "I took the liberty of ordering for us both. If there's anything not to your taste, alternatives can be arranged immediately." I should have been annoyed at the presumption, but found myself more amused than offended. "Do you always take control of situations this way?" "Yes," he answered without hesitation or apology. "It's who I am, Lily. I know what I want, and I arrange for it to happen." "And what is it you want from me?" The question slipped out, more direct than I'd intended. His dark eyes held mine. "Your time, your honesty, the pleasure of your company. That's it?" "For now." The simple response sent a shiver down my spine, promise and warning wrapped together. As we ate, Dominic asked questions about my work, my studies, seeming genuinely interested in my answers. Yet he remained an enigma, deflecting personal inquiries with practiced ease. By the time dessert arrived, a delicate chocolate creation that melted on my tongue, I'd learned almost nothing concrete about him beyond the fact that he'd traveled extensively, spoke several languages, and had strong opinions about Italian cuisine. "You're very good at answering questions without revealing anything," I observed, setting down my fork. "A necessary skill in business negotiations," he replied. "But perhaps unfair in this context." He seemed to consider for a moment. "Ask me one question, Lily. One thing you want to know. I'll answer truthfully." I had dozens of questions about his business, his past, the armed men who seemed to follow him everywhere. Instead, what came out was, "Why me? You could be having dinner with anyone, movie stars, models. Why invite a broke single mother who works at a daycare?" Something shifted in his expression. A softening around the eyes, perhaps, or a moment of genuine surprise at my choice of question. "Because you were sitting alone in a restaurant, abandoned by someone unworthy of your time. Yet you held yourself with dignity," he said slowly. "Because when I invited you to my table, you looked me in the eye without flinching. Because you told me about your fear of being invisible. And in that moment, I recognized something of myself." He took a sip of wine. "Does that answer satisfy you?" It didn't. Not entirely, but I nodded anyway, sensing I'd get nothing more concrete tonight. As the evening drew to a close, Dominic escorted me out to the waiting SUV, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. The touch, though minimal, sent warmth spreading through me. "I've enjoyed tonight, Lily," he said as Marco held the car door open. "I'd like to see you again." I hesitated. "Dominic, I need to be clear about something. My life is complicated. Jamie comes first. Always. And I'm not interested in casual arrangements." "I would expect nothing less," he replied, his expression serious. "I respect your priorities, and I assure you, I don't do casual either." The intensity of his gaze made my heart race. Then what exactly are you proposing? For now, dinner next Saturday. Beyond that. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. Let's see where fate takes us. As Marco drove me home, I stared out at the city lights, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. Dominic Russo was dangerous. Not because he might harm me physically, but because he represented a world so far removed from mine, desires so much more complex than I was prepared to navigate. Yet when Marco pulled up to my building, I found myself already thinking about next Saturday, already wondering what Dominic would reveal next, already imagining his intense gaze and the brush of his fingers against my skin. I realized with a mixture of excitement and dread, already falling under his spell. The following week slipped by in a blur of routine punctuated by moments of unsettling anticipation. I found myself checking my phone more often, starting at unexpected knocks on doors and scanning crowds with an inexplicable hyper-awareness. Dominic didn't contact me. No calls, no texts, no extravagant flower deliveries. Yet his presence lingered like a shadow at the edges of my life. "You're distracted," Mrs. Patel observed on Thursday evening when I picked up Jamie. "Is it work? Or this new man Jamiekins mentioned?" I shot a look at my son, who was gathering his backpack, oblivious to my discomfort. "Jamie, what did you tell Mrs. Patel?" He shrugged. "Just that you're going on another date with a prince on Saturday." Mrs. Patel's eyes twinkled. "He has quite the imagination. Says this prince has a castle and guards with guns." My blood ran cold. "Jamie, honey, what are you talking about? I never said anything like that." Jamie looked up, his expression innocently confused. "I saw the man watching our building, Mom. The one who drove you home. He had a gun under his jacket, like in the movies." Horror washed through me. "When did you see this man?" "Yesterday when we were coming home from school. He was in the black car. I waved, but he didn't wave back." Mrs. Patel's amusement faded, replaced by concern. "Lily, what's going on? Should I be worried?" No, I assured her quickly, mind racing. "I'm sure it's nothing. Jamie has a very active imagination." I ushered him toward the door. "We should go. Thanks again for watching him." Once inside our apartment, I knelt before Jamie, trying to keep my voice calm. "Tell me exactly what you saw, sweetie. This is important." Jamie described a black SUV parked across from our building, with a man inside who looked like a bodyguard from a superhero movie. When pressed, he admitted he hadn't actually seen a gun, but the man looked like he would have one. Relief mingled with anger as I processed his words. Was Dominic having me watched? The thought sent a chill through me, despite the warm spring evening. After Jamie was asleep, I retrieved Dominic's card and dialed the number, pulse racing with indignation. He answered on the second ring. "Lily." His voice was low, pleased, as if he'd been expecting my call. "Is everything all right?" "No, it's not," I hissed, keeping my voice down to avoid waking Jamie. "Are you having me followed?" A pause. "Not exactly." "What does that mean?" "Not exactly. Either you are or you aren't. I arranged for security to monitor your building," he said, his tone matter-of-fact, "for your protection." "My protection?" I repeated incredulously. "From what? And who gave you the right to—" "The world can be dangerous, Lily," he cut in, his voice hardening slightly, "especially for a woman alone with a child." "I've been managing just fine for years without your security," I snapped. "My son saw your man watching our building. He was frightened." Another pause, longer this time. "That wasn't my intention. I apologize for alarming Jamie." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I'd expected defensiveness or dismissal. "Just stop it, okay? No more surveillance. If you want to know something about me, ask. If you want to see me, call. But no more watching from a distance. It's creepy and invasive." "Very well," Dominic replied after a moment. "The security detail will be withdrawn immediately. You have my word." "Thank you," I said, slightly mollified but still unsettled. "May I ask you something, Lily?" "What?" "Are you still planning to join me for dinner on Saturday?" I hesitated. The rational part of my brain screamed that I should end this now, whatever this was, before it became more complicated. A man who thought nothing of having me watched without my knowledge or consent was not someone I should be involved with, yet I heard myself say, yes, but things need to be different going forward. No assumptions, no arrangements made without my knowledge. Understood, he said, and I could almost hear the smile in his voice. I look forward to seeing you. Good night, Lily. I hung up, staring at the phone in my hand. What was I doing? Why couldn't I simply walk away from this man who represented everything dangerous and unpredictable? The answer came unbidden, because for the first time in years, I felt something beyond the numbing routine of survival. Dominic Rousseau made me feel seen in a world where I'd grown accustomed to invisibility. Saturday evening arrived with a knot of anticipation in my stomach. I'd spent the day with Jamie at the park, trying to be fully present while my mind continually drifted to the night ahead. As I dressed for dinner, selecting the same black dress from our previous date, my limited wardrobe offering few alternatives, Jamie watched from my bedroom doorway. You look pretty, Mom, he said, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur, like a princess. I smiled, kneeling to his level. Thank you, sweetie. Now remember, Mrs. Patel will put you to bed, but I'll be home to kiss you goodnight, okay? Is your friend nice? Jamie asked unexpectedly. The one you're having dinner with? I paused, unsure how to answer. He's interesting, I said finally. And yes, he's been nice to me. Jamie nodded solemnly. Good. You deserve nice friends. He wrapped his small arms around my neck. Tyler's mom says you need a husband. I stiffened. Does she now? She told Mrs. Wilson that single moms are always looking for husbands. Jamie continued innocently. Are you looking for a husband, Mom? No, sweetie, I said firmly. I'm not looking for anything. We're perfect just as we are, you and me. A knock at the door signaled Marco's arrival. I gave Jamie one last hug before delivering him to Mrs. Patel's apartment, then descended to the street where the now familiar black SUV waited. This time, however, Dominic himself stood beside the vehicle. A striking figure against the shabby backdrop of my neighborhood. He wore a navy suit that made his olive skin glow in the early evening light, and when he saw me, his expression softened in a way that made my heart skip. Lily, he said, taking my hand and brushing his lips across my knuckles. You look beautiful. You didn't need to come up, I said, acutely aware of curious neighbors watching from windows. I wanted to, he replied simply, opening the car door. As I slid in, I noticed Marco was not alone. Another suited man sat in the passenger seat, his broad shoulders and military straight posture marking him as another security detail. I thought we agreed on no more surveillance, I said, as Dominic settled beside me. This isn't surveillance, it's protection, he corrected gently, for both of us. A necessary precaution in my position. And what position is that, exactly? I pressed, emboldened. You keep alluding to some mysterious occupation that requires armed guards and extreme privacy, but you never actually explain. Dominic studied me for a moment, his dark eyes unreadable. My business interests are diverse and sometimes attract competitors. The security is a deterrent, nothing more. That's not an answer, I pointed out. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. No, it's not. But it's all I can offer for now. He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm in a way that sent shivers up my arm. Trust requires time, Lily. I'm asking for yours. The car glided through the city, eventually pulling up to a historic mansion set back from the street behind wrought iron gates. The property was breathtaking, gardens illuminated by discreet lighting, a circular drive leading to a columned entrance where a uniformed attendant opened our door. What is this place? I asked, taking in the grandeur. My home, Dominic replied casually, as if it were perfectly normal to live in what appeared to be a small palace. I faltered. You didn't mention dinner would be at your house. He caught my hesitation immediately. Would you prefer a restaurant? We can go elsewhere. No, it's fine, I said quickly, not wanting to seem ungrateful or intimidated, though I was decidedly both. I just wasn't expecting this. The interior was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, artwork that looked museum-worthy lining the walls. Yet despite its grandeur, The home felt lived in, with comfortable furniture and subtle personal touches that suggested it was more than just a display of wealth. Dominic led me through to a terrace overlooking immaculately landscaped grounds. A table had been set with fine china and crystal, candles flickering in the gentle evening breeze. In the distance, I could see the city skyline illuminated against the darkening sky. "This is beautiful," I breathed, momentarily forgetting my reservations. "I thought you might enjoy the view," Dominic said, holding my chair as I sat. "And the privacy." A server appeared with champagne, pouring 2 glasses before disappearing as silently as he'd arrived. I took a sip, the bubbles dancing on my tongue as I gathered courage for what I needed to say. "Dominic," I began, setting down my glass. "I need to understand what this is, what we're doing." He regarded me steadily across the table. "We're getting to know each other, Lily. Is that not enough for now? It might be, if circumstances were different, but our worlds are so far apart." I gestured to the opulent surroundings. "This isn't my reality. I work at a daycare. I live paycheck to paycheck in a 1-bedroom apartment with my son. I can't even afford a new dress for our dates." "Do you think I care about any of that?" he asked, leaning forward. "Your worth isn't measured in square footage or designer labels, Lily." "Maybe not to you, but the rest of the world judges differently," I countered, "and there's Jamie to consider. I can't afford to make mistakes or indulge in whatever this is, when he depends on me completely." Dominic was silent for a moment, swirling his champagne thoughtfully. "What if I told you I could make those worries disappear, that money need never be a concern for you or Jamie again?" My spine stiffened. "If you're suggesting what I think you are—" "I'm suggesting nothing inappropriate," he interrupted, his expression hardening briefly. "I'm simply stating a fact. I have resources. Considerable resources. I could ensure you both had everything you needed." "Why would you do that?" I challenged. "You barely know me." "Because I recognize something in you, Lily. Something rare." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Do you know how unusual it is to find someone genuine in my world? Someone who sees beyond the wealth and power to the person beneath?" "You think I see you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I don't even know who you really are." A smile touched his lips. "You see more than you realize. And you're not afraid to challenge me, which is refreshing." Dinner arrived then, expertly prepared courses that would have been at home in any 5-star restaurant. As we ate, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Dominic asked about Jamie's interests, my studies, my childhood dreams. In turn, he shared small glimpses of himself. His love of classical music, his collection of rare books, memories of summers spent in Sicily with his grandmother. With each revelation, the enigma that was Dominic Russo became simultaneously more human and more compelling. I found myself laughing at his dry wit, captivated by his observations, drawn to the intelligence that gleamed behind his careful facade. After dinner, he gave me a tour of the ground floor, a library filled with leather-bound volumes, a music room featuring a grand piano he admitted to playing poorly, a home theater with seats more comfortable than my bed. Throughout it all, I noticed security personnel positioned discreetly at exits, their presence a constant reminder of Dominic's mysterious position. We ended in a sitting room where a fire crackled in a marble fireplace despite the mild spring evening. Dominic poured 2 snifters of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, cognac, he explained, handing me one, nearly a century old. I took a tentative sip, unprepared for the complex flavors that exploded on my tongue. Honey, spice, oak, and something ineffably rich that seemed to warm me from within. "It tastes like liquid gold," I murmured, settling onto a leather sofa. Dominic sat beside me, closer than strictly necessary. A fitting description. He studied me over the rim of his glass. "You seem more relaxed now. The champagne helps," I admitted. "And the cognac. Though I should be careful. I'm not used to fine alcohol." "You adapt quickly to new experiences," he observed. "It's one of your strengths." "A survival skill," I corrected. "Single motherhood is an excellent teacher of adaptability." His expression sobered. Tell me about Jamie's father, if you're comfortable doing so. The request caught me off guard. Men I'd dated in the past had deliberately avoided the topic of Michael, as if acknowledging Jamie's paternity might somehow implicate them in responsibility. There's not much to tell, I said carefully. Michael and I met in college. I was 19, idealistic, studying education on a partial scholarship. He was 23, charming, from a wealthy family. I took another sip of cognac. We dated for about 6 months. When I got pregnant, he made it clear he wasn't interested in being a father. His parents offered money for an abortion. When I refused, they cut him off financially to pressure him to handle the situation. He chose their money over you and his child, Dominic stated, anger edging his voice. Not immediately, I said, surprising myself with the need for accuracy even in Michael's defense. He actually stayed for the first month of my pregnancy. But when reality set in, that I was keeping the baby, that his parents weren't bluffing about the money, he left. Transferred to another university, changed his phone number. I shrugged, an old pain resurfacing despite my attempt at nonchalance. I haven't seen or heard from him since. He abandoned his responsibilities, Dominic said, his jaw tightening. A man who does that is not a man at all. It was a long time ago, I murmured. I've made peace with it. Jamie and I are fine on our own. Are you? Dominic challenged gently. Working multiple jobs, living in an apartment too small for 2 people, counting dollars until payday? He set down his glass and moved closer, taking my free hand in his. You deserve more, Lily. Both of you do. The intensity of his gaze made my heart race. It's not about what I deserve. It's about making the best of what I have. And if you could have more? His thumb traced my knuckles, sending shivers up my arm. If someone wanted to give you and Jamie a better life? Warning bells sounded in my mind. Yet I couldn't bring myself to pull away. Nothing comes without a price, Dominic. Not everything is a transaction, he countered, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered against my cheek, warm and slightly calloused. Sometimes it's simply about connection, about recognizing something rare and wanting to protect it. I wasn't sure who moved first. Perhaps we both did, drawn together by the electricity that had been building between us since that first night. His lips met mine in a kiss that started gently, almost tentatively, before deepening into something hungry and urgent. His hand slid to the back of my neck, drawing me closer as my fingers clutched the lapel of his expensive suit. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, I felt disoriented, as if I'd been swept up in a current too powerful to resist. Dominic's eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them, his expression a mixture of desire and something more complex. I should go, I whispered, suddenly frightened by the intensity of my own response. It's getting late, and Jamie. Of course, Dominic said immediately, though his hand remained at the nape of my neck, thumb stroking the sensitive skin there. Marco will take you home. He pressed his forehead to mine, our breath mingling. But I want to see you again, Lily, soon. And I want to meet Jamie. The mention of my son snapped me back to reality. I pulled away slightly. Dominic, I don't know if that's a good idea. Us, it's complicated enough already. He's part of your life, Dominic said simply. An important part. If I'm to be in your life as well, our paths will cross eventually. And what exactly does being in my life entail? I asked, needing clarity despite my still racing pulse. He cupped my face between his hands, his gaze unwavering. Everything, Lily. I don't do half measures. When I want something, someone, I pursue it completely. The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a thrill of excitement through me, to be wanted so thoroughly, so absolutely after years of feeling invisible. I need time, I said finally. This is all happening very quickly. Take the time you need, he replied, brushing his lips against mine once more, but know that my interest won't wane. I'm a patient man when the prize is worth waiting for. The ride home was silent, my mind replaying the evening, the opulence of Dominic's home, the intensity of his interest, the searing heat of his kiss. Part of me knew I was playing with fire, that becoming involved with a man like Dominic Russo would inevitably change my life in ways I couldn't predict or control. Another part craved exactly that. Change, excitement, the promise of something beyond the careful, constrained existence I'd built for Jamie and myself. When Marco pulled up to my building, I was surprised to see Dominic had arranged for a woman to escort me to my door, a concession to my earlier complaint about male security watching my home. "Good night, Miss Spencer," the woman said professionally as we reached my apartment. "Mr. Russo asked me to give you this." She handed me a small velvet box. Inside, nestled on black satin, was a delicate silver bracelet set with a single diamond that caught the hallway light in brilliant flashes. "I can't accept this," I said automatically, trying to return the box. "It's too much." "Mr. Russo anticipated your response," she replied with a small smile. "He asked me to tell you, not everything is a transaction. Sometimes a gift is just a gift," using my own words against me. Clever. I closed the box, uncertain. "Please thank him for me." Alone in my apartment, after checking on Jamie's peaceful sleeping form, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the box again. The bracelet was exquisite, elegant rather than flashy, as if Dominic had somehow intuited my taste. A small card nestled beneath it bore a handwritten message. "For moments when you feel invisible. I see you, Lily." I traced the words with my fingertip, recognizing the dangerous precipice before me. Dominic Russo was offering a glimpse of another world, one of luxury and protection, of being truly seen and fiercely wanted, but such offers always carried hidden costs. And with Jamie's future in my hands, I couldn't afford to make a mistake. Yet as I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, watching the diamond catch the lamplight, I knew I was already falling, not just for Dominic, but for the version of myself I saw reflected in his eyes. Someone worthy, someone desired, someone who might dare to want more than mere survival. Sunday morning brought reality crashing back in the form of a leaking bathroom sink, a mountain of laundry, and Jamie's homework project due Monday. I tucked the bracelet into my jewelry box, a battered wooden container that had belonged to my mother, holding more sentimental trinkets than valuable ones, and immersed myself in the mundane necessities of our life. But Dominic's presence lingered like a phantom, in the memory of his kiss, in the words he'd spoken, in the silent promise of the bracelet hidden away. I found myself touching my lips absently while folding laundry, replaying our conversations while helping Jamie with his solar system diorama. "Mom, you're putting Neptune where Saturn should go," Jamie pointed out, breaking my reverie. "Sorry, sweetie." I corrected my mistake, forcing myself to focus. "Let's double-check the order again." "Are you thinking about your friend?" Jamie asked, his perceptiveness catching me off guard. "What makes you say that?" He shrugged. "You keep smiling at nothing, and your cheeks are pink." I touched my face self-consciously. "I'm just a little tired, that's all." Jamie seemed unconvinced, but returned to his careful placement of planets. After a moment, he asked, "Will I ever meet your friend?" The question echoed Dominic's words from the previous night. I hesitated, uncertain how to answer. "Would you like to?" "Maybe," Jamie said thoughtfully. "Is he nice to you?" "Yes," I replied honestly. "He's very nice to me." "Then I want to meet him." Jamie glued the tiny sphere representing Mars onto its wire. "Tyler's mom got a new boyfriend and he's mean. He yells at Tyler and takes away his video games when his mom isn't looking." My heart clenched at the matter-of-fact way Jamie delivered this information. "That's not okay, Jamie. Did Tyler tell an adult about this?" Jamie shook his head. "He's scared his mom will be mad. She really likes the boyfriend." He looked up at me solemnly. "You won't get a mean boyfriend, right, Mom?" "No, sweetie," I assured him, pulling him into a hug. "I would never let anyone treat you badly, not ever." "I know," he said, his faith in me both heartwarming and terrifying. "You're the best mom." His simple trust made my throat tighten. How could I explain to a 6-year-old the complications of adult relationships? The potential dangers of becoming involved with someone like Dominic Russo, whose life seemed shadowed by secrets and surrounded by armed guards? The selfish part of me that craved the excitement, the luxury, the intoxicating feeling of being desired by such a powerful man? Monday morning brought a text message from Dominic. "Good morning, Lily. I hope you slept well. Would you and Jamie join me for a picnic this Saturday? There's a place I'd like to share with you both." I stared at the message during my lunch break, torn between caution and curiosity. Meeting at his mansion had been overwhelming enough. Introducing Jamie to that environment seemed unwise. But a picnic sounded innocuous, even normal, the kind of activity any dating couple might share with a child. After careful consideration, I replied, "A picnic sounds nice, but I'd like to know where first." "Jamie has soccer practice until noon." His response came quickly. "There's a private nature preserve about an hour from the city. Beautiful hiking trails, a lake. We could meet at 1. Marco will collect you." "A private nature preserve?" "Of course. I shouldn't have expected a public park. Jamie loves the outdoors," I wrote back. "We'll be ready at 1. Throughout the week, Dominic texted occasionally. Nothing invasive, just small messages checking in, asking about my day, sending a photo of a book he thought I might enjoy. Each message was carefully worded, never presumptuous, yet carrying an undercurrent of intimacy that made my pulse quicken. I found myself watching for his name on my phone, disappointed on the one day when no message came. It was alarming how quickly he was becoming a part of my mental landscape, how easily I was adapting to his presence in my life. By Friday, Jamie was buzzing with excitement about meeting Mom's special friend, as he called Dominic. I'd told him very little, unsure myself how to define what Dominic and I were to each other, but Jamie had filled in the blanks with his own imagination. "Does he like dinosaurs?" Jamie asked as I tucked him into bed. "Because I'm bringing Rex to show him." He clutched his beloved stuffed Tyrannosaurus, worn nearly flat from years of love. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "But I bet he'd be happy to learn about them from an expert like you." Jamie nodded seriously. "I'll teach him. And maybe he knows about space stuff too. Tyler's mom's boyfriend knows nothing. He thinks Pluto is still a planet." I smiled, brushing his dark curls from his forehead. "Just remember, sweetie, this is just a picnic, a chance for you two to meet. Don't get too excited, okay?" But my warning came too late, or perhaps I didn't deliver it convincingly, my own excitement betraying me. Either way, when Saturday arrived, Jamie was up at dawn, choosing his outfit with unusual care and rehearsing dinosaur facts to share. Marco arrived precisely at 1, accompanied by the same female security detail who had escorted me to my door the previous weekend. "Miss Spencer." Marco greeted me with a nod. "Young Mr. Spencer," he added, acknowledging Jamie with unexpected warmth. "Are you the driver?" Jamie asked, eyeing Marco with open curiosity. "Mom says you have a really cool car." A flicker of amusement crossed Marco's normally impassive face. "Yes, I am, and yes, it is cool." The drive took us through the city and into the countryside beyond, lush with late spring greenery. Jamie pressed his face to the window, pointing out interesting sights while peppering Marco with questions about the SUV's features. To my surprise, Marco answered each one patiently, even demonstrating the vehicle's navigation system. Eventually, we turned onto a private road marked only by a discreet sign reading, "Oak Hill Preserve, private property." The road wound through mature forest before opening onto a stunning vista, rolling meadows dotted with wildflowers, a crystalline lake in the distance, and mountains rising beyond. Dominic waited beside a vintage Land Rover, casually dressed in dark jeans and a light sweater that somehow looked as expensive as his suits. The absence of security personnel, at least visible ones, surprised me. "It's beautiful here," I said, as Marco helped us from the car. Dominic's eyes never left my face. "I thought you both might enjoy it." He crouched to Jamie's level, extending his hand. "You must be Jamie. I'm Dominic. I've heard excellent things about you." Jamie shook his hand with the solemn importance of a child determined to make a good impression. "Are you Mom's boyfriend?" I flushed, but Dominic answered smoothly, "I'm a friend who very much enjoys your mother's company, and I hope to be your friend too if you'll allow it." Jamie considered this, clutching Rex to his chest. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I find them fascinating," Dominic replied seriously, "though I must admit, my knowledge is limited. Perhaps you could teach me?" Jamie's face lit up. "I know everything about them. This is Rex," he said, thrusting the stuffed animal forward. "He's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, the king of dinosaurs. His bite force was stronger than anything ever." "Impressive," Dominic said, examining Rex with appropriate gravity. "It's an honor to meet you both." He gestured toward a path leading into a meadow. "I've prepared a spot by the lake, if you'd like to follow me." He'd prepared a spot, indeed. What awaited us wasn't the simple blanket and basket I'd envisioned, but an elaborate setup that looked like something from a luxury magazine. A large canopy providing shade, plush cushions arranged on elegant outdoor furniture, and a gourmet spread laid out on a low table. Jamie's eyes widened. "It's like camping but fancy." Dominic laughed, a genuine sound I hadn't heard from him before. "An accurate assessment. I've brought a few things I thought you might enjoy." Those few things included a professional-grade telescope, a kite designed to look like a dragon, and a remote-controlled boat for the lake. Jamie circled the displays in awe while I stood speechless, caught between appreciation for the effort and discomfort at its extravagance. "You didn't need to do all this," I said quietly to Dominic. "I wanted to." He replied simply, "Is it too much?" The genuine uncertainty in his question surprised me. "It's overwhelming. We're used to peanut butter sandwiches and juice boxes when we picnic. I can arrange that for next time if you prefer," he said, completely serious. I laughed despite myself. "No, this is lovely. Just unexpected." The afternoon unfolded with surprising ease. Jamie took to Dominic immediately, especially after discovering he owned a first edition of a rare dinosaur encyclopedia. For research purposes, Dominic claimed, though I suspected it was a recent acquisition specifically for this meeting. While Jamie flew the kite in the meadow, running with abandon beneath the clear blue sky, Dominic and I sat beneath the canopy, watching him. "He's extraordinary," Dominic observed. "Intelligent, curious, resilient, like his mother." "He's everything to me," I replied, my gaze following my son's gleeful sprinting. "Everything I do, every decision I make, is with him in mind." "As it should be," Dominic said, his hand finding mine on the cushion between us. "A child should be protected, valued, guided." Something darkened in his expression. Not all fathers understand this sacred obligation. The personal edge in his tone made me wonder again about his own history. "Did yours?" I asked quietly. Dominic was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the distant mountains. My father believed children existed to further his legacy. Love was conditional, bestowed when we succeeded, withheld when we failed. His jaw tightened. He was a powerful man who confused fear with respect, control with guidance. "I'm sorry," I said, squeezing his hand. "That must have been difficult. It taught me what kind of man I didn't want to be," he replied, turning to meet my gaze. "What kind of father I would choose to be, if given the chance." The implication of his words hung in the air between us, charged with meaning. Before I could respond, Jamie came racing back, breathless with excitement. "Can we try the boat now? Please?" The moment dissolved as Dominic rose, all attentive enthusiasm. "Absolutely. Let's see how fast it can go." At the lake's edge, Jamie and Dominic sent the boat skimming across the water's surface, their heads bent together over the controls, sharing the simple joy of making something move at their command. I watched them from a few steps back, struck by the contrast. My small, dark-haired son alongside this powerful, dangerous man who had, for the afternoon at least, transformed into a patient playmate. Later, as the sun began its descent toward the mountains, we shared the elaborate meal Dominic had arranged. Gourmet sandwiches, fresh fruits, pastries that Jamie declared the most delicious ever. When the air cooled, Dominic produced a child-sized fleece jacket that happened to feature dinosaur embroidery. "You thought of everything," I remarked, as Jamie proudly zipped up his new jacket. "I try to," Dominic replied. "Preparation is a habit in my line of work." "In what line of work requires armed guards, bulletproof vehicles, and the ability to procure custom dinosaur jackets on short notice?" I asked lightly, though the question was genuine. Dominic's smile didn't reach his eyes. "A complicated one, Lily. One that requires specialized negotiation skills and resource management." "That's not an answer," I pointed out, echoing our previous conversation. "No," he agreed, "but it's all I can offer right now." He took my hand, his expression serious. "There are aspects of my life, my business, that are better kept separate from this, from us, for your protection, and for Jamie's." Warning bells sounded in my mind, yet I couldn't bring myself to pull away. "That sounds ominous." "It's not meant to be," he assured me. "Just realistic. I've made enemies in business, people who would use any perceived weakness against me. His gaze shifted to Jamie, who was examining a beetle on a nearby rock. And there is no greater vulnerability than caring for someone. As twilight descended, Dominic set up the telescope, showing Jamie constellations and planets with unexpected knowledge. My son's face glowed with wonder as Dominic guided his eye to Saturn's rings, explaining the composition of the planet and its moons with the ease of someone well-versed in astronomy. You know a lot about space, Jamie observed, impressed. I find the universe fascinating, Dominic replied. Its vastness, its mysteries, the way it makes our earthly concerns seem small by comparison. Mom says we're made of star stuff, Jamie informed him seriously, that the things in our bodies used to be in stars that exploded. Your mother is absolutely right, Dominic said, glancing at me with warmth that made my chest tighten. We're all connected to the cosmos in the most fundamental way. By the time Marco appeared to drive us home, Jamie was half asleep, clutching Rex and his new jacket. Dominic lifted him effortlessly, carrying him to the car with a tenderness that caught me off guard. I had a really good time, Jamie mumbled, as Dominic buckled him in. Can we come back? Anytime you like, Dominic promised, smoothing Jamie's hair with a gentle hand. This place is always open to you both. As Marco helped me into the car, Dominic caught my hand. Thank you for today, he said softly. For sharing Jamie with me, for trusting me that much. The genuine gratitude in his voice touched something deep inside me. He likes you, I said simply. And I like him, Dominic replied. Very much. He brushed his lips against my knuckles. May I see you tomorrow? Just us? I hesitated, glancing at Jamie's drowsy form. I don't know if I can find a sitter on such short notice. Bring him, Dominic suggested. I have plenty of room. He can watch movies, play games, while we talk. The idea of bringing Jamie to Dominic's mansion made me uneasy. I don't think... Or I could come to you, he offered, surprising me again with his flexibility. A simple dinner at your place, no extravagance, no security detail, just me. The thought of Dominic in my tiny apartment, sitting at my secondhand table, seeing the reality of our daily life without the filter of luxury outings or carefully orchestrated meetings, was both terrifying and strangely appealing. Okay? I agreed finally. But I'm cooking. Nothing fancy. A smile spread across his face. Genuine, warm, transforming his normally guarded features. I look forward to it. 7 o'clock? I nodded, unable to resist returning his smile. 7 it is. The next evening found me in a state of nervous energy, cleaning our apartment with obsessive thoroughness, while Jamie helped by rearranging his dinosaur collection to show Dominic. I'd prepared a simple pasta dish. Nothing that could compete with the gourmet meals Dominic was accustomed to, but comfort food made with care. At precisely 7, a knock came at the door. I smoothed my hair, took a deep breath, and opened it to find Dominic standing alone. No Marco, no security detail, holding a bottle of wine and a small gift bag. Hi, I said, suddenly shy in a way I hadn't been during our more elaborate dates. Hello, he replied, his eyes taking in my casual attire, jeans and a soft blue sweater, with evident appreciation. You look beautiful. Before I could respond, Jamie came barreling down the hallway. You came. Come see my dinosaurs. I arranged them by the time period they lived in. Dominic laughed, allowing himself to be pulled into our small living room, where Jamie had created an elaborate display. This is impressive, he said, examining each plastic figure with appropriate seriousness. A museum-quality exhibition. While Jamie launched into a detailed explanation of the Jurassic period, I observed Dominic in my space, his tall frame making our apartment seem smaller, his casual clothing still obviously expensive, but understated enough that he didn't seem entirely out of place. He had dressed down deliberately, I realized, an effort to bridge our worlds. He caught me watching and winked, a surprisingly playful gesture that made my cheeks warm. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Jamie dominated the conversation, as 6-year-olds often do, while Dominic listened with genuine interest, asking questions that delighted my son with their perception. I watched them interact, trying to reconcile this attentive, gentle man with the powerful, dangerous figure who commanded fear and respect from everyone around him. After dinner, Jamie pleaded for Dominic to read his bedtime story. I hesitated, then nodded, curious to see how he would handle this most intimate of family rituals. In Jamie's small bedroom, Dominic sat on the edge of the bed. Jamie tucked against his side as he read about a young dinosaur's adventure with patient expression and different voices for each character. When he finished, Jamie asked for another, then another, his eyes growing heavy as Dominic's rich voice filled the small room. One more, Jamie mumbled, fighting sleep. Tomorrow, Dominic promised, tucking the blanket around him. Rest now, young explorer. The dinosaurs will wait for you. Jamie's eyes fluttered closed. You'll come back? If your mother allows it, Dominic replied, glancing at me in the doorway. "'Sgood," Jamie murmured, already drifting off. You make Mom smile more. In the living room, Dominic accepted a glass of the wine he'd brought, his expression thoughtful. He's remarkable, Lily. You've done an extraordinary job raising him. Thank you, I said, warmed by the genuine admiration in his voice. He seems quite taken with you, too. Children have excellent instincts, Dominic replied. They sense authenticity, or its absence. We sat on my worn sofa, closer than necessary in the small space. The domesticity of the scene, wine after dinner, a sleeping child nearby, soft conversation in a modest home, seemed incongruous with everything I knew about Dominic Russo, yet he appeared utterly at ease, as comfortable here as in his mansion or private club. This is nice, he said, as if reading my thoughts. Your home. It feels lived in, loved. It's small, I said apologetically. Nothing like what you're used to. What I'm used to isn't always what I prefer, he replied, setting down his glass and turning to face me. Lily, there's something I need to tell you, something important. The serious tone of his voice made my heart race. What is it? He took my hands in his expression grave. My feelings for you have grown beyond what I anticipated. I find myself thinking of you constantly. Of Jamie, too. Of what it might be like for us to be together. Dominic, I began, uncertain what to say. Let me finish, he said gently. I know our worlds are different. I know there are aspects of my life that may seem frightening or mysterious to you. But I want you to understand that what I feel for you is real, rare. Something I've never experienced before. He reached up to cup my cheek, his palm warm against my skin. I want to be part of your life, Lily. Yours and Jamie's. Not as an occasional presence or a provider of experiences you couldn't otherwise afford, but as a constant, a partner. My breath caught. We've only known each other a few weeks. Time is relative when certainty exists, he replied. I've lived long enough to recognize what matters, what's worth fighting for. His thumb traced my lower lip. And you, Lily Spencer, are worth everything. His kiss was gentle at first, a question rather than a demand. When I responded, sliding my arms around his neck and pressing closer, the kiss deepened, became hungry, desperate. His hands tangled in my hair as mine clutched at his shoulders, the desire that had been simmering between us finally breaking free. When we parted, both breathing heavily, Dominic rested his forehead against mine. Come home with me, he whispered. Bring Jamie. Stay the weekend. Let me show you what life could be like for us. The invitation hung in the air between us. Tempting, frightening, full of promise and peril. I don't know, Dominic. It's all happening so fast. Say yes, he urged, his voice low and persuasive. One weekend. If it's not what you want, if either of you are uncomfortable, Marco will bring you home immediately. No questions, no pressure. I thought of Jamie's delight in Dominic's company, of the genuine care he seemed to show for my son. I thought of the security, the comfort, the possibilities that Dominic's world offered. And I thought of the warning signs, the armed guards, the evasive answers about his business, the intensity that bordered on possessiveness. Yet when I looked into his eyes, what I saw wasn't threat, but vulnerability. A man offering his heart, perhaps for the first time, and bracing for rejection. Yes, I heard myself say, the word escaping before I could reconsider. Will come. His smile was radiant, transforming his normally guarded features. You won't regret it, Lily. I promise you that. He kissed me again, sealing the promise with a tenderness that made my heart ache. I'll make you both so happy, as he held me close on my threadbare sofa in my small apartment that suddenly seemed like a temporary way station rather than a home. I wondered if I'd just made the wisest decision of my life, or the most dangerous mistake. Either way, I knew with absolute certainty that after this weekend, nothing would ever be the same again. The morning sun streamed through windows larger than my entire apartment bathroom as I woke in Dominic's guest suite. For a moment, I lay still, disoriented by the luxurious surroundings, the silken sheets, the plush mattress, the tasteful artwork adorning walls that seemed impossibly far apart. A gentle knock at the door broke my reverie. Mom, are you awake? Jamie's excited voice carried through the heavy wood. Come in, sweetie, I called, sitting up against a mountain of pillows. Jamie bounded in, already dressed in new clothes that had mysteriously appeared in his guest room closet. Perfectly sized jeans and a t-shirt featuring detailed dinosaur anatomy. His hair was damp from a shower, his eyes bright with excitement. This place is amazing, he exclaimed, jumping onto the bed beside me. My bathroom has buttons that make the water different colors, and there's a TV that comes out of the ceiling. I smiled at his enthusiasm while noting with mixed feelings how quickly he was adapting to these luxuries. Did you sleep well? So good. The bed is like sleeping on a cloud. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. Dominic's making breakfast. He said to tell you to take your time, but also that there are clothes for you too. He pointed to the walk-in closet. He said they're just options, not obligations. That sounded like Dominic, thoughtful, yet careful not to presume too much. We had arrived late Friday evening, Jamie half asleep as Dominic gave us a brief tour of the essential areas of the mansion, before showing us to our rooms, adjacent suites connected by a shared sitting room. The gesture wasn't lost on me, providing proximity to my son while respecting boundaries. I'll be down soon, I promised Jamie. Don't eat all the pancakes. After he dashed out, I investigated the closet to find a selection of casual clothing in my exact size. Jeans, sweaters, even comfortable shoes. Nothing ostentatious or overly expensive looking, just quality basics that wouldn't make me feel out of place. Again, the thoughtfulness of the gesture touched me. Dressed in jeans and a soft green sweater that made my eyes look more hazel than their usual brown, I made my way downstairs, guided by the smell of coffee and the sound of laughter from the kitchen. The scene that greeted me was surreally domestic. Dominic at the stove flipping pancakes while Jamie sat on a stool at the island, arranging fruit into patterns on plates. No staff, no security personnel, just a man and a boy enjoying a simple morning ritual. Good morning, Dominic said, his eyes warming as they took me in. Coffee? Please, I replied, accepting the mug he offered, the perfect strength and color, as if he'd memorized my preference from our previous meetings. Jamie's been telling me about his science project, Dominic continued, sliding a perfect pancake onto a growing stack. A volcano, I believe. It erupts real lava, Jamie announced proudly. Well, not real lava. Baking soda and vinegar and food coloring. But it looks real. Sounds impressive, I said, sipping my coffee. When did you two decide on this? This morning, Dominic explained. I mentioned that I studied geology in college, and Jamie asked if I knew about volcanoes. You never told me you studied geology, I noted, adding to the mental file of Dominic facts I was slowly accumulating. Among other things, he replied with a small smile, my father insisted on a diverse education. The breakfast that followed was delicious and surprisingly relaxed. Jamie chattered about school, dinosaurs, and his newfound interest in volcanoes, while Dominic listened with genuine engagement, asking questions that demonstrated not just politeness, but actual interest in my son's thoughts. What's the plan for today? I asked as we cleared the dishes, another oddly normal activity in this extraordinary setting. I thought we might build that volcano, Dominic suggested, glancing at Jamie's hopeful expression. I have a workshop in the East Wing with everything we need. And later, if you're interested, there's a pool." "A pool?" Jamie's eyes widened. "Inside?" "And heated," Dominic confirmed. "Though I'm afraid we'll need to find you suitable swimming attire." "That won't be necessary," I began, not wanting him to purchase yet more items for us, but Dominic raised a hand. "Actually, it's already taken care of," he said apologetically. "I hope I haven't overstepped, but when Jamie mentioned he liked swimming during our picnic, I thought it might be an activity he'd enjoy here." The volcano construction occupied most of the morning, the three of us working together in Dominic's surprisingly well-equipped workshop. I watched with a mixture of amusement and wonder as this powerful, dangerous man helped my son mix papier-mâché with the serious concentration he might give to a business negotiation. "You're good at this," I observed during a moment when Jamie was occupied with painting the volcano's base. "I enjoy working with my hands," Dominic replied. "There's satisfaction in creating something tangible." "Is that lacking in your usual work?" I ventured. His expression grew thoughtful. "My business deals primarily in concepts, influence, territory, agreements. The results are real, but often invisible to the casual observer." He glanced at Jamie, then back to me. "This is refreshingly straightforward. Mix, build, paint. Immediate results, immediate joy." The afternoon found us in the indoor pool, an oasis of blue water and natural light streaming through a glass ceiling. Jamie, delighted with his new swim trunks, dinosaur-patterned, of course, splashed and played while Dominic taught him to improve his stroke, the patient instruction of a natural teacher. I watched from the edge, feet dangling in the warm water, struck by how easily Dominic had slipped into our lives, how natural he seemed with Jamie, how attentive to his needs and interests. If I didn't know better, I could almost believe we were simply a family enjoying a weekend together, without the complications of our disparate backgrounds or the mysteries surrounding Dominic's business. That illusion was shattered when Marco appeared at the pool entrance, his expression grave. "Mr. Russo, a moment, please." Dominic's demeanor changed instantly, the relaxed smile replaced by something harder, more alert. "Of course." He turned to us with an apologetic look. "I need to address something. Please continue enjoying the pool. I won't be long." He followed Marco from the room, his posture shifting subtly into what I now recognized as his business stance. Shoulders squared, head high, an aura of command surrounding him. "Is Dominic in trouble?" Jamie asked, paddling over to me. "No, sweetie. He just has work to do," I reassured him, though uncertainty gnawed at me. "Grown-up business stuff. Marco looks scary sometimes," Jamie observed, "but he's nice." He showed me the security room with all the cameras. My pulse quickened. "When was this?" "This morning, when you were sleeping," Jamie said casually. "Dominic had to check something and Marco showed me the screens. You can see everything. The gate, the garden, even the kitchen." The thought of extensive surveillance throughout the property made me uneasy, though I reminded myself that for someone in Dominic's position, whatever that truly was, security would be a necessity. Dominic returned nearly an hour later, his expression composed, but a new tension evident in his jaw. "I apologize for the interruption," he said smoothly. "A business matter that couldn't wait. Is everything okay?" I asked quietly, when Jamie swam to the far end of the pool. "Nothing for you to worry about," he replied, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "A minor dispute with a competitor. It's been addressed." I wanted to press further, to understand what kind of dispute required such immediate attention on a weekend. But Jamie's return with requests for underwater handstands cut the conversation short. Dinner that evening was served on the terrace. A simple but elegant meal prepared by a chef who appeared briefly then vanished again, leaving us in privacy. As darkness fell, Dominic showed Jamie how the telescope on the terrace could be adjusted to track specific stars, their heads close together as they peered at distant worlds. When Jamie finally succumbed to exhaustion, Dominic carried him to his room. The sight of my son's sleeping form cradled against his broad chest, creating a confusing blend of emotions within me. Tenderness, longing, and an undercurrent of fear at how quickly this man was becoming essential to us both. "He's asleep," Dominic announced when he returned to the terrace, where I sat wrapped in a cashmere throw against the evening chill, didn't even wake when I took his shoes off. He settled beside me on the outdoor sofa, closer than necessary, his warmth a temptation against the cool night air. "Are you comfortable, Lily? Is there anything you need?" "I'm perfect," I admitted, unable to deny the contentment that had settled over me despite my lingering questions. Today was wonderful. "For me as well," he said softly, his arm sliding around my shoulders. "Seeing you both here, in my home, it feels right, Lily, like pieces fitting together." I leaned into his embrace, my head finding the hollow of his shoulder. "Jamie adores you. The feeling is mutual," Dominic replied, his voice rumbling beneath my ear. "He's an extraordinary child, bright, curious, resilient. A credit to you." "Thank you," I murmured. "You're surprisingly good with him." "Surprisingly?" He chuckled. "Did you expect me to be awkward around children?" "I didn't know what to expect," I admitted. "Your world seems so adult, complicated. All the more reason to value simplicity when it appears," he said, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. "Jamie sees the world clearly, without the cynicism that comes with age and experience. It's refreshing." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Then Dominic shifted, turning to face me more directly. "Lily, there's something I've been wanting to discuss with you," he began, his expression serious. "A proposition of sorts." My body tensed involuntarily. What kind of proposition? He must have felt my reaction, for his hand moved to cover mine reassuringly. "Nothing improper, I promise. It's about your situation, yours and Jamie's." "Our situation? Your apartment is too small for 2 people," he said gently. "The neighborhood isn't safe. Jamie's school is underfunded, offering none of the enrichment his bright mind deserves." Though his assessment was accurate, I bristled slightly at the implicit criticism of the life I'd built for us. "We manage." "You do more than manage," Dominic corrected. "You perform miracles with limited resources." "But what if you didn't have to struggle? What if Jamie could attend a school with advanced science programs, with a proper library and safe playgrounds? What if you could finish your education without working 2 jobs? My heart raced. "What are you suggesting exactly?" "I own several properties," he said carefully, "including a townhouse near the river, in a good school district. It's sitting empty. I'd like you and Jamie to live there." "Dominic, I can't." "Before you refuse," he interrupted, "understand that this isn't charity. It's an investment in Jamie's future, in yours. You could continue your studies full-time. Jamie could attend Westbrook Academy. I've already spoken with the headmaster." The presumption took my breath away. "You what? Without discussing it with me first?" He had the grace to look slightly abashed. "I merely inquired about availability. No commitments were made." His hand tightened around mine. "Lily, I'm not trying to control your life. I'm offering resources that I have in abundance." "It's too much," I insisted, pulling away slightly. "We barely know each other, and living in a house you own, what would that make me?" His expression darkened. "Is that what you think of me? That I would expect something in return?" "I don't know what to think," I admitted. "This weekend has been like a fairy tale. But real life isn't like this. People don't just give without expecting something back." "I'm not people," Dominic said, an edge entering his voice. "And what I want isn't what you're implying." "Then what do you want?" His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. "A future, Lily. With you. With Jamie. I want to build something lasting. Something real." The sincerity in his voice made my throat tighten. "It's too soon for these kinds of decisions. Too fast." "Perhaps for most people," he acknowledged. "But my life has taught me to recognize value instantly, to act decisively when something matters." He cupped my face in his hands. "And you matter, Lily. You and Jamie. More than I can express." His kiss was gentle at first, a question rather than a demand. When I responded, sliding my arms around his neck and pressing closer, it deepened into something more urgent, more demanding. For minutes that stretched like hours, we lost ourselves in each other, the night air cooling our heated skin. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Dominic rested his forehead against mine. "Stay," he whispered. "Not just this weekend. Stay here with me. Let me take care of you both." The offer was tempting. So tempting it frightened me to never worry about rent or bills again. To see Jamie in a safe neighborhood with access to the best education, to pursue my own dreams without the constant pressure of financial survival, it was everything I'd ever wanted. But the cost, dependency, obligation, the unspoken power imbalance between us, loomed large in my mind. "I need time," I said finally, drawing back slightly. "This is a huge decision, especially for Jamie. I can't just uproot our lives on a whim." Disappointment flickered across his features before he schooled them into understanding. "Of course." I shouldn't have pressed. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands." As we sat beneath the stars, his arm around me and his heartbeat steady against my cheek, I wondered what I was truly afraid of, that Dominic's offer came with hidden strings attached, or that I wanted so desperately to accept it, despite the rational voice warning me to proceed with caution.